Ooh, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm a little thrown off my game today. If we're in black and white, it's because I don't know how to change the color back on my phone.
Technical issues.
Technical issues is what we're saying. So we'll be sharing the tea on legislative advocacy for nonprofits. I said it right. I've been having a struggle with that word. But if you never met me, I'm Sabrina Mendez. I'm the founder of Supporting World Hope, a nonprofit consulting agency that I started out for 25 years in the industry. And today we have with us Desiree Mendez. Desiree, Caltzontzint.
That is correct, actually.
Oh, yay! I practiced that too. She's the former grant administrator for a local Congressional office under the U.S. House of Representatives. That is a big title.
Thank you. I am right now currently at the university. I work with research grants. Formerly, though, I did work with a lot of nonprofits.
Okay.
So that's why I'm here today to talk about that.
Good. She has a lot of knowledge to share. But before we get started, if you can click the like or heart button, if you can hear me loud and clear, and let me know where you're watching from, even if you're watching a rebroadcast. This will help us with our Facebook algorithms. So, Desiree, tell me a little bit about yourself and your legislative experience.
Okay. So, like I said, my former experience was that I would work for under the U.S. House of Representatives for 10 years. I was a grants coordinator for a local congressman. So I worked a lot with a lot of different nonprofits in the area in South Texas. So it was nice to see everybody in action, but sometimes people, weren't sure about what legislation was or what advocacy was versus lobbying. And there is a very fine line that you need to be careful with. So, so that's what we'll talk about today.
Yeah. So tell me, what is the difference between advocacy and lobbying?
Okay, so we'll just kind of dive into it.
Yeah.
So when we look at nonprofits, let's start with what is a nonprofit, right? Because some people don't know what that is. There is a IRS tax exempt code called a 501c3. Mm-hmm. And then when you become an official, nonprofit with the federal government, the IRS will make sure that you file this nice, very long application.
Right.
And you become a 501c3.
Okay.
Now, there's other organizations called political organizations, and they're called under the IRS tax code 527 political organizations.
Okay.
And then there's other organizations that during campaign season everybody talks about PACs.
Yeah.
What are political action committees?
Right.
So political action committees, they are people that, for instance, fund and endorse candidates. Mm-hmm. And they're, like I said, same thing with political organizations. 527, they fund candidates as well and endorse them. But nonprofits really need to watch the fine line. At any point in time, a nonprofit is doing too much political work, then the IRS can take their 501c3 tax exemption away. Okay. So, that makes you the 501c3 tax exemption makes you an official nonprofit. So.
Okay. So why should nonprofits advocate?
So, right. So going back to what nonprofits do, a lot of different nonprofits, whether it's going to be housing, your background, Boys and Girls Club of America, and then also a variety of other subjects, American Heart Association, Cancer Association, different nonprofits around the country or even locally, if they are trying to push certain issues with their congressional members of Congress in the United States or at the state level. And I would even say don't even surpass your local city council as well.
Okay.
I mean, it's very important to be involved with all three of those at least.
Okay. And what are some of the ways that nonprofits can advocate for their mission without kind of getting in trouble and riding that fine line of lobbying?
Right. So the fine line between advocacy and lobbying is when we look at lobbying is trying to influence members of Congress, your state legislature, or the city council with certain pieces of legislation.
Okay. So
you're pushing hard about your issue, whether it's going to be, and I'll give you some examples. National Rifle Association, they're considered lobbyists. They have lobbyists. Okay. Even the NFL. The NFL is a nonprofit, but they do have hired lobbyists.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the NFL is actually a 501c3. And then there are other organizations, though, that I'll say a local one. Locally here in South Texas, we have an organization called Lupe, and Lupe does a lot of pushes a lot for immigration issues, and so they do a lot of advocacy. And advocacy means that you inform more of the community about what's going on in that area. So they push for advocacy. Now you could call like your state legislature or your legislators or your federal legislators and say, hey, we really would like for you to vote this way. But like I said, too much when your agenda is just full of pushing legislation, you become a lobbyist.
Okay.
So,
okay.
and like I said, somebody could report you, or IRS can ask you for financial reports on how much money you spent in reference to your efforts for advocacy. When it's very political, it becomes lobbying.
Okay.
So.
Okay. What is the best way to build a relationship with elected officials or with your legislator?
So there are basic stuff like first of all, and you know this because when you were the executive director at Boys and Girls Club, you did letters and annual reports. Those are like the main things that you want to do, and obviously don't send legislators this ginormous list of or annual report. Send them a fact sheet, something quick that not only that they can read on the go because they're very busy. But also that the staff can read too, and everybody is understanding what the organization is doing that year. And you did a great job of it when you were at Edinburgh Boys and Girls Club. But that's one thing. Another, and I've been following you, Sabrina, because you've been mentioning about building relationships already for a while.
Yes.
In reference to your board.
Yes.
In reference to your community.
Yes.
But in reference to your legislators, it's just as important. And you're talking about going to Washington, not lobbying, but advocating. Advocating for your issues. Talk about your organization. What is it that you do? And make sure that your legislators know who your president is of your board.
Okay. So
your president of the board should travel with you to to the Austin or Washington D.C.
Okay.
And it's good to get to know, like I said, them personally on a personal basis. Okay. Now, they're busy, but they do come to the district very often, whether it's going to be from Washington or Austin. Invite them to your events, and it doesn't mean like I'm going to invite them to a fundraiser and they're going to give me a check. No. Invite them so that they get to know your program, your staff, your board, and then who you're serving, whoever your constituents are that you're serving as a nonprofit. Okay. It's important that they know who you're serving and what impact it makes in your community. So that's very important. And seeing you in action and getting to know you on a personal basis, and say, you know what, I saw some funding that they're announcing. I'm just going to give Sabrina a call and tell her she needs to be ready to apply for this. Okay, great. And that's happened in the past.
Yes.
Where we had federal funding coming in. I want to say in 2008 we had the American Recovery Reinvestment Act. Okay. And it was like really exciting because we had all this money coming, but we told everybody in our district, hey, be ready, there's some funding coming down and we need to have some plans together. Okay. So, and that's exactly what we did. We called certain people that were, in education or certain people that were in transportation or construction or whatever. We made sure that everything was in place for when they announced it, then those organizations had a plan. Okay. So,
this is not on the question, not on this, but I kind of want to know. So you said go to Washington, D.C. Is it a difference between advocating in D.C. and advocating locally? Because I know you have like a local office and a D.C. office.
That's a good question, actually. It's actually the same thing. Okay. So you don't make a trip to Washington D.C. Okay. And break your piggy bank. Okay. You don't have to. Okay. Got it. I would tell you that's actually really good. So I would tell you that the congressman or the state senator or state rep that are in Austin, D.C. They'll make it back to their district. So you don't actually have to make a trip over there. If by chance you're making a trip over there, like I have, for instance. Seen some people that have applied for grants and they have to go to Washington D.C. for the workshop. They will, they're always reminded, don't forget to stop by and see your congressman. Okay. Okay. But they can do the same thing here in the local offices. So it's very good to know that also they have a staff here locally. And I think it's very important to, because the congressman or the, state senators are so busy. that it's important to know their staff. So when, hey, Sabrina, I know, the congressman's not in town, but I want to invite him to this event in January. Do you think he'd be available? Stuff like that. It's very important to have that personal relationship, with the staff.
Okay.
But you don't have to go to DC. You could always make an appointment here in the local area with your, with your leader.
Okay.
So.
Now, I know on the state level is the chief of staff. On the federal level, who will be the point of contact, the best point of contact in the local office?
In the local office, usually like a director of the office of some sort, and even you should get to know your chief of staff in DC too.
Okay.
Email them, introduce yourself. Like I said, send a fact sheet, and then tell them that you would like to invite them to an event, or maybe work with them in the future in reference to some federal funding, or state funding.
Okay, that sounds good. But what I hear Desiree saying is you don't have to get complicated. And
right.
A one sheet or fact sheet that you send to your legislator will be good, because nonprofits tend to, it's so complicated.
And I work with a variety of grant writers. When you tell a grant writer, put it on one page, they freak out.
Yeah.
Because it's so much information.
It's a lot of information,
but
a one-sheeter would be good. So if you're joining us, welcome. Like I said at the beginning, if you could do a like or a heart just to help us with our Facebook algorithms, that would be great. And we have with us today Desiree, and we're speaking about legislative advocacy. Yay! I got the word right. So, how can nonprofits engage their legislator or elected officials?
So, like I mentioned, very important to have a relationship with the local staff and make phone calls, send invitations, stop by and say hello to your local staff, even if it is to stop by and this is what we're doing next. This is the funding that we're applying for. This is our project. People need to know what you're doing in your organization, and it's very important to let your leaders know what you're doing in your organization. One thing that we used to do all the time also was provide letters of support for grant applications.
Okay.
So when we had grant applications come in and they, I need a letter of support from my congressional member, we would work on that as well. So certain grants it's usually for federal, but it could be for federal, state, or private, because now there's a lot of public-private partnerships as a reference to funding, and they'll require sometimes a letter of support from from a community leader or member. You could ask your member of Congress or your state representative to provide that letter for you.
That's a good point, but I hadn't thought of that. What is the best way to communicate with your legislator or elected official? I know you talked about communication a lot, but what is the best way to communicate with them?
There's so many ways. You're right. There are a variety of ways to communicate. I still say go to the staff, because the staff spends a variety of time or a lot of time with that leader. And they're also probably have direct access to that person. So sometimes, they're so busy and they filter through calls and messages and whatnot. So it's easier to make sure that the staff, hey, Sabrina, I want to make sure that you get this message, because I want, state senator to know that we're going to invite them to this big event January. And it's on this date, and we'd love to have them. And then you follow up again with that staffer. So.
Okay, so staffer is key.
Yeah, I would tell you staff is a key. You can send mail, but you're talking about sometimes the congressional offices in DC getting 400 pieces of mail sometimes.
Oh, wow.
So it's better to have that personal relationship. I can't stress it enough. I know you stress it all the time.
Personal relationship.
Right. And I have examples of where, conversations started with, staff members, and it became big projects. So
that's
it's cool. It's very cool.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. What is the best example of a grassroots advocacy that you saw during your career?
Oh, there's so many, but when it came to probably a good example, I would say, I probably don't have like a direct example, and I would say that there's a variety of events that happened during my tenure when I was working for the House of Reps, but a grassroots.
Yeah, something just kind of blew you away, like, you know what, no other nonprofit had done that or thought of that, or...
Okay, well, I will tell you that nonprofits have gotten creative along the way. When I started with the House of Representatives back in 2005, we're looking at organizations trying to even just apply for a general grant, like funding. So we had to literally teach organizations how to fish for their own meal, and so that was different. So we saw organizations grow from and the reason was because funding was going to a variety of areas across the country, except South Texas.
Right.
And so here we are, watching everybody eat our lunch.
Right.
So we saw a lot of different organizations do. There was a pocket full of organizations that were very active with communicating with their members. Like I said, inviting them to fundraisers, not asking them for money.
Right.
Because they're, but asking them to please, come, join the community, be a part of our organization. We'd love to have you. Even, inviting, I've seen them invite, for instance, the leaders' wives to come participate in the events.
Okay.
So
that's not off the table. That's
right. It's not off the table. But it's very cool. Like, they could be Senator, I would love for your wife to come speak about this.
Okay.
So it was engaging. There was, like I said, relationships that were being built where here is the wife of a certain leader that would come in and speak about issues that were important to that leader and to her and the community. Okay. So whether it was family or small business or women in business, a variety of things that could happen. So unique things. I mean, everybody does gift baskets,
right?
And everybody does annual reports. But like I said, can you do something different? I'm not too sure. Everybody's very unique in their own way.
In their own way. But it's good to know, to engage the spouse, to engage the rep, to engage the staff, to build all those relationships.
That's true. When the leader is not available, and I did it many times where I did a lot of speaking engagements because people wanted to know, hey, who's involved in the community? What are y'all doing? What's next? What's coming up? Is there funding coming up? Is there a shortage of funding? People wanted to know more. So it's good if the leader's not available. Like I said, they could send somebody else.
Okay. What is this is a question that I've had because I started this process and I never went through with the process, but I always wanted to know. If I had the right skills, could I have done it? So, what is the proper process for a congressional appropriation? Let me give you a little background. It was for our capital campaign. We were trying to build a building, and we were looking for a direct appropriation. And I started the research and kind of started it. But I got lost in the process.
What year was that? Okay.
Oh, like 2008. It was the recession.
Okay.
It was a bad year.
Well, I asked the year for a reason. So in 2008, when President Obama came in, they actually got rid of appropriation.
So I did all that research from nothing. Okay, so.
And we were anticipating that they would come back, and just so that people know what appropriations are, they're line items that go into legislation that provide funding for certain projects for different members of Congress. And in this case, we had appropriations in the past, and it made our leader very active in advocating for our community. So in this case, though, in 2008, Obama came in and said, we're going to get rid of line item altogether.
Okay.
So
So it wasn't me.
No, it wasn't you. It was a cool process, and like I said, sometimes you would go through a lot of work and put it together, and sometimes it just wouldn't happen.
Okay.
So it was like I said, it's an old thing now.
Okay.
So they don't do line item appropriations anymore.
Okay. So the fact that they don't do line item appropriation anymore, let me ask you a question because I know we're getting tight on time. But how will someone access federal monies now? Is it purely grants? What's the process?
So it is. It's actually they would tell you to go to grants.gov on the federal side.
Okay.
Well, even on the state side. That is the process right now. But there is something, like I mentioned before, public-private partnerships. Okay. Where there's a lot of corporations that are coming in and doing a lot of public partnerships with different agencies and trying STEM area. You see a lot of private companies partnering with Department of Education, Department of National Science Foundation, other organizations where they're trying to really put our best foot forward as a country.
So now it's grants and it's competitive.
Very competitive.
Okay.
So I would tell you that as an organization, yes, advocate for your issues. And yes, I would tell you also to learn about grant writing, you know, extremely important because it's very competitive. So.
Okay. I remember one of the things that you used to do, you used to send out, and I used to look forward to it,
Yes.
your grants.
Alert letters.
Alert letters, and you do all that. Now, how did you comprise that? Did you just went in and you know where to look under grants.gov? Because sometimes you can go to grants.gov and it's a little overwhelming.
It is extremely overwhelming. And it's come a long way, though. I'll tell you that much. When I first started, it was a mess.
Right.
And now at least it's a little bit more organized. So when it comes to funding, I would tell you there's a variety of, you know, places to go. I used to do a grants.gov. There was a one that I used to use called Grantsmanship Center, and they have a subscription service.
Okay.
Also, I would tell you very much so, I work at the university now, and I still push, you know, for resources at the university. There is a nonprofit center at the university, and they have a foundation center library for private partnerships, for corporate funding, you know, partnerships. So you can look for funding and it's free. You go into the university and make an appointment, and they have this big database where you can look for funding.
Okay.
So for public and private, partnerships.
Okay, good, because I know everybody gets. One of the number one calls I get is, do you write grants? And I tell people I can write a grant, but it doesn't give me the warm and fuzzy. So there's a lot of good grant writers that I know of in the community now, and they're always busy with a lot of work. Yes,
so,
yeah. It just doesn't give me the warm and fuzzy. So when I retired and started this, I said, well, if it doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies, I'm not going to do it.
Absolutely. Everybody has their love. Some people have a love for grant writing, so it works for them.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me. So is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, just that I wanted to mention again, kind of repeat that there's a long-term investment in building relationships. So build relationships, and like I said, don't even put it past, you know, your city council. Last week I serve on a city library board and made sure to invite all my city council members to a holiday social event. I just wanted to sit down and talk to them about the future of my library in my community. So something very simple, and you know, it goes a long way.
Invite them, engage with them, sit down and talk with them. Yes, in the letters, yes, in the annual report, but it's better to have that personal relationship with your, you know, leaders. So I also talk about celebrating small victories. If something goes well in your organization, you got a grant, you're, you know, doing a merger of some sort. Invite, you know, people of the community, invite your leaders to you know, advocate, you know, for your issues. So that's what's very important. Now, like I said, be very careful during election season, because some organizations get, you know, I'm going to endorse this candidate. As a 501c3, you should not be endorsing candidates. Like I said, you will get your 501c3 removed from the federal government. So. And that's on a local level and a federal level.
Right, absolutely. And there's a couple of resources online, Council of Nonprofits, if you don't know them. There's a newsletter, Nonprofit Quarterly. They talk about a variety of those issues, lobbying versus advocacy. And so check them out. They have a lot of good stuff. The IRS has a workshop. It's like 10 modules or 10 workshops just on advocacy and lobbying.
Okay, so that way you can't go wrong. It's 10 modules.
And it's from the federal government. Like they set the rules. So I would tell you to look it up online if you're a little confused. You can still, you know, ask around. And then don't forget, you have your local congressional offices and your state senator's office and state rep's office, and ask them as well, you know, what do you think? So
okay. Thank you. So we are asking that if you have any questions to put them in the comments. We know most people will watch this on rebroadcast. Desiree has agreed to answer any questions. If any come across, I'll make sure that she gets them. I'd like to thank her for being with me today, the Sipping Tea. That's actually our time. If we didn't get to your questions, again, make sure that you ask them in the rebroadcast, and make sure you let us know where you're from. That kind of helps us as well. And I'm looking to cover different topics in 2020 and asking for your opinion on what do you want to hear about. I kind of, this past year when I started this, I kind of went through and said, what did I want to hear about when I was the CEO? And I've kind of exhausted that list. So anything that you want to hear about, let me know. We have a lot of experienced individuals in the Rio Grande Valley that will be willing and open to talk to you about that. As you can see, all the guests I've had have been pretty open and honest about their processes. Don't forget, you can follow me, and you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, what's the other things? LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. On Instagram, I'm _nonprofit expert. On YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and I just did a Pinterest. It's at Supporting World Hope. I have a lot of sample documents out there. And that's Sipping Tea with Sabrina. See you next time. Bye.